As long as we all know the reason I'm even going ahead with this trilogy, and as horrific as it's been claimed, quadrilogy, is because of you guys. Specifically, you, Michael, wanted to see this. As humanity was being swept up into the sky like lemmings off a mountainside, it became apparent that something was going on with the blue light and the subsequent exposure to it. As veins appeared, new adaptations within humanity would begin to crop up, leading to not only immunity, but a way in which to counter the attack from the Xeno menace, inducing traceable adaptations in the cellular makeup. In today's episode, we answer the questions left over after the just original masterpiece known as Skyline. What is this blue light? How does it operate? And how does the body respond to this invasion? Well, in the next episode covering Skylines, I know what a magnitude of genius was displayed there to come up with that. We will cover the actual aliens, considering we finally get to go to their home planet and stomp tails so bad that we're wearing socks made of shit. So let's get to it, covering the movie Beyond Skyline today. We kick off our wonderful story with hydraulics, I think it's actually, which totally isn't fake at all, providing us with a woman being wheeled through a tunnel as everyone preps for her emergency blood transfusion as she talks about fighting back or something. Look, I won't sugarcoat it for you. This should have been 3 movies all of its own. The amount that this was rushed after the first movie is what I believe took out this franchise, because strap in, you're about to witness the power of street knowledge and Hollywood money on this one. Anyhow, so she wants to fight back, evidently, until there is nothing left. Real Dean Winchester of you. It is Beyond Skyline. As we pan through the planet, it's still populated, clearly before it's getting invaded. At least they won't use footage from the first movie as filler. Nobody would do that. As a debadged truck then pulls up, we know it's a Ford. Oh hey, it's the man from everyone's A Werewolf movie, and if you haven't seen that, you should go watch that next, because I did a video on that. Knocking back some mouthwash because he's hammered currently, he then heads into the police department of Los Angeles, which is a fairly tough job. A woman gets a call as a signal is then picked up, but she can't understand it. She then asks if Officer Sexy here is coming back to work. Another officer comes out, and I legit did not look at him at first, and I thought this was for real Bobby Lee.
Hey, Dan.
Bobby.
No, you don't have to.
Walking up to him. So the Punisher and Bobby Lee then head to the interrogation room as the Punisher says to lock him up. It appears to be his son, however, and if he gets locked up for a 3rd time, he's gonna go away for a lot longer because, again, that's his 3rd offense. Being released because, remember, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. They then head outside, getting in the nondescript truck, which we're supposed to have no idea what it is. His old man then grills him about doing whatever it is that he did. Attempting to start the truck, it is a Ford, so despite having the battery working and the starter running, it sounds like it could be a distributor issue because the fuel is not igniting. That, or you just straight up ran out of gas, which, given this duo, is totally possible. The Punisher is drinking again as his son gets out and decides to just walk it, giving money to the homeless because he's such a stand-up dude, so you don't understand. He needed to do those crimes, like Robin Hood style. This is what I always hate. Okay, so here's Mr. 3 offenses over here, evidently committing crime, yet his behavior indicates he cares about people. So then just go volunteer or something. There's always this incongruent behavior, which allows you to basically enjoy their character and not feel bad about it. Nah, make him a total tool who has this great arc. Anyhow, Roanoke Reviews aside, which is a legit channel, by the way, I just never talk about it, they then walk down to the subway and decide to take the metro. The Punisher then tells them he's so much smarter than this. Well, obviously not. Evidently that his son hit a guy one time and then broke his jaw, but will that translate into knowing how to fight aliens? Highly unlikely. Not knowing what he's supposed to do with them, well, just send him to the military. That allegedly straightens people out. Also, Prometheus here is 24. It's time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. So as one dude gets up for his stop, the train then jumps tracks and derails as a blind man out there earlier is unaffected by the blue light, pulling everyone else in. Okay, so with my first episode, we talked about how the blue light enters the retinas and then travels through the optic nerve, in turn causing the brain to enter a trance-like state. This is accomplished by the brain itself firing and repeating patterns, much like how a seizure would induce the same thing. This in turn opens the body up to suggestibility, much like during hypnosis, which, not to rehash the same points, but essentially there are key areas of their brain that are going to communicate, and depending upon which of those are either increased in activity, decreased, or have their communication between those areas disrupted, this can actually allow you to enter a hypnotic state, and that will be achievable. A major area of the brain that is going to be actually affected by this is the frontal lobe, responding to hypnosis, but in this case responding to this light. Now, as the brain becomes affected, it's clear the real way for all this to take hold is the light has to be interpreted. So if you have cataracts or just completely blind, as shown with Sarge here, then the light can never really truly enter the brain. However, as we will find out, this blue light is not just energy, but also appears to be an infectious form of technology affecting the actual organelles of neurons and the genes of neurons, as well as, I guess, every somatic cell in your body, inducing the problems with consciousness, as we will see. As it turns out, my thinking concerning his being like a contagion of sorts, or being affected by a contagion, was in fact correct, as neurons are recruited. However, the way that in which this works is not really true energy corruption, but instead has more physical and directed impacts. I mean, it is alien technology. The reasoning is, adaptations can form against this process should exposure happen at a very key point. And with that exposure come either the effects that are clearly impacting the actual physiology of a human, which would require an overhauling of the entire metabolism. But I don't want to make that sound too confusing. We're going to talk about all that momentarily because it's an infection as much as it is just energy. So back in the train, everyone is shaken as the train driver then calls out to anyone who will answer. The Punisher is told there's a power outage. Yes, clearly, as the train then jolts again, as the Punisher is now freaking out because he doesn't do well in tight spaces. There's plenty of room in here, but whatever. Look, if it's good enough for Artyom, it's good enough for you. So as the driver then comes out, the conductor, we have a problem, has finally exited out of the train. On the radio, someone calls out and then they're told not to look at the lights. The train then jolts again as they decide now would be a very good time to leave. Beginning their hike out of there, everything continues to lurch, which then scares the Punisher even further. Bobby Lee comes out of the bathroom break as everyone is now gone. Which, dang brother, how long were you in there for? This is a classic 007. 0 reports submitted, 0 bad guys arrested, 7 bathroom breaks. Outside, the other homeless get up heading towards the light as the blind man then is completely unaffected, asking where they are all going. Of course, he gets no answer, but at the subway, they can hear rattling as everyone walks up to the surface as Mr. Curious sees something getting his dad and conductor's attention. I call him Mr. Curious, but his actual name is Mr. Hero, and you'll see why. He's not a common thief, you see. He's more rounded, and the audience can love him for it. Back at the precinct, the lights then ascend as a random woman number 47 sees the light first. Her eyes instantly change as Mr. Hero then holds onto her arm as they begin escalating, and then he looks into it too. Good plan, brother. She then walks off as the Punisher goes to grab his son's arm, not looking into the light. As they get sucked up, the Punisher then holds onto the roof, preventing them from ascending. As Bobby then sees in the sky, everyone is being asked, have you ever been swallowed? Getting Mr. Hero downstairs, his eyes then fix themselves, as we know the old song and dance for this one. Everyone's getting debrained up in those ships to become monsters. As they keep walking, they randomly run into Bobby down there. What are the odds of that? He then tells them about how everyone was abducted, as the Punisher then says they need to move or they will die. Yeah, but what if they're friendly? They're not friendly. So the conductor, we have a problem, tells everyone to unhand their male phallic members and stop comparing them, as Mr. Hero then meets Sarge, which I think that they were just discussing a plan on which was the best way to go. Communication amongst males isn't always about dick measuring. Sometimes it's just a disagreement on which way you should go or how things should happen. It's just, that's kind of male communication. So their plan is to hoof it out of there using the subway as cover. Walking all of 3 hours because it was already 4 a.m. when the aliens came down, that hangover has got to be hitting at this point, and with no sleep, absolutely brutal. So climbing a ladder, the Punisher now sees the ships, releasing all the smaller ships as the military at this point is engaging in the nuking of the mothership. Queuing up Freebird solo again, they then start running away from the entrance as the tunnel then goes all crazy style with a nuke going off. They hide as the subway collapses as one guy gets totally squished and Mr. Hero goes back for Sarge. Waking up, yeah, definitely sucks to be that one guy that got crushed. Can anyone remember who he actually was? Because I can't. The tunnel has collapsed, and now they're exposed to untold amounts of radiations and aliens. Also, it's not radiations, it's just radiation. So good luck with that, guys, as Sarge then starts talking how the nuke was tactical. Okay, then. So apparently, he knows it's low-yield radiation issues, he alleges. Now you may be asking, well, Sarge, how do you know any of that? Well, because he was in Vietnam, and if you suggest that somehow us going to Vietnam is gonna somehow be shoehorned in here, I got news for you. I'm not crazy, you're crazy, Ghost of Napa. Also, I have no idea where we're going because someone was really bad at geography in this movie. You're about to witness the greatness that is Beyond Skyline. So as they look up, an alien immediately comes around the corner grabbing Bobby. Mr. Hero is exposed to the light for the second time, and seeing as there's no other option, the Punisher then starts firing right next to his ear, and you just deafened your son. Good work. The alien then starts shrieking after taking buckshot to the face as the Punisher then finishes punishing it. Phrasing. So as Bobby survived being squelched into that thing, they then release him as the other cop says, well, maybe it wanted him alive, and then it rips her brain out, which Apparently they're not dissolving your head anymore, they just rip your brain out of the back of your skull. Yes, you're about to see a lot of things get retconned under the rule of cool mentality. So as they fire on it again, it lock and loads demons of the sky and then puts the brain in the suit. So here's something we really didn't discuss in depth, which is processing power of the human brain. The brain is different from a computer, as you might imagine. With a computer, it is capable of processing precise calculations quite efficiently, but with a brain, things are different and more in tune with how life operates to begin with. These suits appear to need human brains because the suits themselves are machines. Well, biomechanical machines. They appear to have a directive and a pathway to get there, which is acquiring brains through methods of searching. The added human brain increases the ability quite a bit. The human brain runs off about 20 watts of power, which is not all that much, easily sustained by this suit. But with this comes a massive ability to process more information. The human brain is capable of trillions of processes in a second and thinks in a more real-world and adaptable way. Because of this, it can respond to its environment at a much better rate and alter direction if needed. And this is why the aliens are choosing the human brains to begin with. For the ability to adapt and process a high level of incoming information at different points that could change quite frequently. The issue is that pesky consciousness just seems to be standing in the way of all this. So, how do you get rid of that problem? Oh, you sweet, sweet summer child. Well, I cannot tell you yet because then you'll click off this video and nobody wants that, including YouTube, which for some reason is just throttling the absolute hell out of this channel. I like to blame YouTube Shorts. I don't know if it is YouTube Shorts. So if you're enjoying this content, please feel free to subscribe. Maybe check to see if you're subscribed. Click notifications. I don't know, do something, because my God, it's bad. So giving the Punisher a flare, he then goes to burn it as he throws it in a gas tank, which holds off detonating until he's safely brought up to the radiation-laden surface. Thank God cars know not to blow up when the hero is standing right there, and they wait until he's free and clear. Yes, that's how that works. No need to look any further into that past that point. So looking out, they see a ship in the distance is putting itself together again as they use footage once more from the first movie. Stop that. Telling everyone to move, Mr. Hero then starts advancing in another direction, as then they head into the famous Los Angeles waterways. Well, if the aliens don't get you, the used needles will. At this point, everything is going to crap as Bobby decides to hang back for some reason. And I mean, I guess he was injured, but mostly he seems fine. And see, this whole movie is, how do I end myself the quickest for the group so that I'm remembered for how great I am? Also, you're gonna square up with that thing chasing you to buy time? Yeah, good luck with that, my brother in Christ. So yelling at it, he's immediately tentacled and then sucked into that thing. Bought them an entire 1.3 seconds. Should have just kept running with them. Reaching the boat docks, a man on the radio then tells them to hold their position as 3 choppers get dispatched to them. Well, one is going to be brought down over Turkleton's penthouse as a giant alien then jumps down and is now firing its laser out of its own hands. Mr. Hero gets sucked up by the ship almost immediately as the creature then starts firing its laser at everyone. The Punisher yells at it as he's lasered and then brought up into the ship also. Sarge, however, cannot see, so he just gets tentacled by the giant creature, and now he's brought up. A humanoid alien then jumps down as it begins looking through the area with a map of the world, as it now begins its trek very clearly over to Hawaii. I'm not tripping. Anyways, in the storage container, the Punisher then wakes up first, as then he goes to wake up a guy who immediately gets debrained, as his body's just kind of thrown out. So I guess, again, they don't dissolve the heads anymore. They just kind of rip them out. The de-sculling was cool in the first one. This is just lame. So as the Punisher retreats, everyone then starts getting grabbed and debrained. Mr. Hero then wakes up alongside the conductor. We have a problem, as the Punisher horrifically aims at the arm doing that. He misses every shot. The alien then spots this anomaly, and I can say only at this point, I was warned about this movie, and I decided to tread into this turf anyways. My fault. However, I am but one man, and I think it's still totally acceptable that we all blame Michael for this as well. Getting grabbed while trying to grab onto Mr. Hero, the Punisher is able to free himself before being debrained, as then he's dropped into the body disposal pit before almost getting yeeted out of the ship entirely, but luckily, a really sharp prong through his leg broke his fall. Okay, so again, I want you to look at something. You see the map that the alien is holding up? It's not just me, right? That clearly shows they are on their way to Hawaii. That is this dude's next target, and this is about to be so dumb. Climbing his way back up, he begins walking through Goo Central. How many more rounds could there possibly be in this handheld? And as he looks out, he sees several aliens as brains are being added to their suits. The Punisher's alcoholism then rears its ugly head as he says he needs a drink before finding a deprogramming woman. It's a madhouse up here. Except, as we were about to see, why the aliens remove the youngling from the womb is actually probably more of a question of keeping the host alive. So we see one alien with red eyes running around as their brain has not been corrupted by the blue light infection. Entering the sac room, what is that? Poking it appears to be a gestating youngling, as another alien then finds him as he opens up on it, with the other alien getting upsetty over this. Red Eyes then finds another alien as he starts going ham on it. Tearing out its processing power, he then drops the brain as then he runs off to stop more. Seeing this, the Punisher then follows him, which enrages Alien Prime, who's been watching all of this. Mr. Hero then wakes up, spiderwebbed, as he reaches out to Conductor, we have a problem, and reaching into her back pocket, the other back pocket, he lights a flare in his eyes as he sees nothing because he lit a flare in his eyes. To be honest with you, this room is bright enough that they could have seen everything regardless. It was well lit. So the Punisher then catches up with Red Eyes at this point as he tells him he has to find his son. Cutting a line, Red Eyes then superheats a claw to cauterize the wound from the life-saving prong. Finding a woman whose water broke. Okay, so this is Brody from the first one, right? This woman here is not due for another 6 months, so that's not ideal. The baby was super grown, as I break in to say, these are not the same characters from the first movie. Okay, so we got some serious retcon going on here, but how were these babies grown? Let's discuss. Well, when exposed to the light, as we have seen, it's clear this is more infectious than just energetic. As a result of this, we need to ask why the younglings should have grown so fast. Well, given what we saw with the other woman, that must have been the case, and is really not an anomaly, as she had her stomach bursted or it was cut out, not really sure which. I think this one is pretty clear. The aliens need to grow the babies quicker so that they can access the brains quicker. It's clear they need adult human brains, which are at their maximum processing capacity. The frontal lobe of the human brain is about 99% done forming at around the age of 25, and it's fully formed usually when you hit your 40s. By getting the brain to this point as quickly as possible, many more brains could be utilized. So younglings are placed in gestating chambers as this process is allowed to continue. Given the children the mothers may have naturally had, which are going to be very large, this would clearly lead to a bleed out situation should they give birth naturally, and so they're likely freed from their pregnancy as well as their own brains. But how are they super grown? Well, this process is fairly easily explained, and it always comes down to the mitotic genes that humans have, the cyclin and CDK genes. These genes are responsible for regulating mitosis of somatic cells within the human body. By increasing the rate at which these cells will allow for controlled growth, we can assume then that the blue light is in turn also clearly influencing the genome of these younglings that had not fully gestated yet. Because of this revelation in the mitotic genes being affected, we need to ask what other genes are affected and how might this impact adaptations? Well, it's important to remember that although your genes really will not change to adapt to an environment, they're just the template, epigenetics plays a role, like a huge role, in adapting to an environment on a more immediate front. But what are epigenetics? Well, epigenetics is essentially the idea that you can adapt to an environment through things like genetic expression. Depending on how the DNA is expressed, this can have impacts on your physiology and on your brain as well. So let's say you're in an environment that requires strength over standard muscular contractions. Your body, being adaptable, will actually express genes in a different manner to make your muscles grow. Chemically, this can be accomplished through things like histones, which is what DNA actually wraps around, and this in turn can actually make a gene more difficult to access, which in turn causes that gene to not be expressed because it doesn't need to be, whereas other genes will be expressed more often. As this changes over time, you will experience the adaptations to the environment on an individual level. What's more interesting is this information can actually be passed along to offspring, and the adaptations can also be reversed. So when you have an adaptation to the environment, it's clear your younglings may not need it, but it's never encoded, just passed down. So we all know that as the planet changes, so too is a result of that going to be your epigenetics may not be as necessary later on. So they can be reversed. And as we will see, given the exposure to the blue light, we see the genes are impacted in a fairly large way, allowing for the youngling to begin expressing rapid growth over a relatively short amount of time. Again though, it's important to remember that the body is not a separate system from itself. As one thing is changed, this can lead to unforeseen consequences in other areas, specifically for the alien technology at play. So, meeting the new Elaine and Jared, I guess, Conductor, we have a problem, almost falls as the Punisher then helps Elaine have her offspring. Swinging the Conductor, we have a problem, to the ledge, she grabs onto it, but then loses grip. Elaine literally dies having the youngling, which I guess is a great way to explain why her entire face has changed and why you couldn't hire the original actress or even pay the one that you got. So Conductor, we have a problem, gets to the ledge as Brody is upset that his woman has just died. So after all that, after the whole first movie is about saving her, this is what happens to her. Why God, is all I can say. So keeping the younglings, he then tells them to go find his son, but how does Jared really know what he looks like? Was this ever explained? You're gonna find out Nothing is ever explained. Also, the baby has red eyes. Yes, she has adapted, and now she produces this red light because, again, it's an infection, not just energy. So, hiding from the blue brains, these creatures are mega unobservant, as in they walk directly past the Punisher. Also, where did the Punisher get a diaper for this baby? That remains to be seen. So the blue brains find Elaine as they realize she had her youngling. Brody then breaks the door so nobody can follow as he manually walks off. You're like, manually walks off. Like, we all know the walk. Like, when you think someone is watching you and you're feeling kind of awkward and then you forget how to walk like a normal person, that walk. So getting an upgrade, the Punisher then puts his arm in the scorn hole next, as he is now given an upgrade also. A claw! And realizing nobody can stop the claw, it's so stupid. So seeing the ship's cannon on the hologram, they then look through the ship for Mr. Hero, and as they do, the door is forced open by Alien Prime. Red Eyes then opens another door as he goes to square up with Blue Brain. Sarge is calling out about Viet Cong. As conductor, we have a problem. Mr. Hero looked down, seeing the Punisher. Dropping the youngling off in some webbing, Alien Prime had to walk several miles up the inefficient ramp style just to get to Red Eyes. Meanwhile, in wherever they are, everyone then starts getting de-brained. Mr. Hero jumps over to Sarge as Red Eyes then squares up with Blue Brain and or Alien Prime, but oh no, he's trained in the way of the claw and reading a telegraph punch from a mile away. So swinging over to Mr. Hero, they then drop Sarge, who's blind, on a random ledge way up high, as Mr. Hero then gets grabbed by a tentacle and he's pulled off and de-brained. His CGI body unceremoniously dropped, I'm assuming, out of the entire ship. Conductor, we have a problem, then gets grabbed next as the Punisher jumps onto the tentacle monster as they all get dropped. Red Eyes is getting his tail kicked by Alien Prime as then he gets stabbed a few times. That alien is making moves on the Punisher as then he starts stabbing tentacles as then we get just a random sequence of events where he ends up with the upper hand as then he stabs it a bunch more. Blue Brain has now caught up with them as then his claw disappears at the worst timing. Some would even claim horrific timing. You're telling me these things have a limit? After a while, they just kind of throw douches, possibly even deuces, and just disappear. Anyways, the youngling then starts crying as Alien Prime heads over to him with Sarge attempting to square up, but there's no shot he would have ever seen this hit even coming as immediately he gets stabbed, which y'all could have told him to dodge or something. So Red Eyes then drops an orb down into the cannon, which then blows up the whole thing. The thing that they are in, which they are now, assumedly, crashing over Hawaii, except psych, you'll never believe where they are now. So a few people on the ground saw it coming down as what's left of the police there are engaging with the aliens. The girl then gets knocked out somehow with a biker helmet on as this turns into a close quarter combat situation for some reason. Like, shouldn't y'all be focused on fighting the aliens which are actively attacking you? Definitely not. So the police are wilding out all over the place apparently as Bro gets stabbed as they now run away. Okay, so get this, right? They're in Laos now. I want you to remember this as this will be stupidly important, and not stupidly important like, my God, this was so important. Stupidly important as, wow, I think I lost a few brain cells thinking that was important. Apparently this ship crossed the entire Pacific despite setting its course for Hawaii. Might have missed a drop point by a few thousand miles there, my boy. Or in heathen units, a few thousand kilometers, my boy. So as now the youngling is basically a toddler, the whole thing is very odd. Actually, a little too odd. Like, do you know what kind of nutrition it would take for the body in order to, like, grow to this point? Well, this is somewhat explained later, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'll have to do some heavy lifting when it comes to these points because it is glossed over inside of, like, 3 to 4 sentences. And, like, the entire time I was waiting for a honest-to-God explanation, it never happens. So strap in for the Roanoke speculation rant trademark. Looking at Mr. Hero and Sarge, who is somehow still alive. Also, whatever conductor we have a problem is holding is not a toddler. Emerging from the crash, Blue Brain is back up. Helping Sarge back to his feet, Bro's organs are definitely confetti at this point after that hit. And jumping into a river below, he most definitely has an infection. The woman named Kanya then finds an egg, and grabbing the smoking egg, I can't advise that, as Mr. Alien Prime looks at the map. Well, it appears to all be going to crap. Attempting to reform any type of ship, Kanya then takes the egg Jurassic Park 3 style and puts on her helmet, which didn't help with a butt smack from a handheld, so why even wear it in the first place? And getting out of the water, Kanya and her brother then find them as Sarge flatlines out as the offspring continues to grow rapidly. Getting all the red lights to turn blue now, Mr. Hero is implanted into a body as he's able to overpower this body once more, at least for a second, and then he's reprogrammed shortly after into a standard drone. So now, this turns into a hostage situation for reasons that you don't know, I don't know, nobody knows. Why does this woman think she's also going to get a lot for this egg that she found? Who are you selling it to exactly? I have no idea why these two are automatically aggressive as the Punisher then gets into some good old like fashioned hand-to-hand combat with the brother. Why? Well, stop asking questions. This movie is so stupid. I hate to be this guy about it, right? And it's like, oh, you're being hyperbolic, but it's like, I loved Skyline, right? I didn't even know that there were 2 other movies. And I was thinking, yeah, it's probably just some dumb action flick, whatever. My God, I was so wrong. I lost brain cells for legitimately watching this. Okay, so the Punisher then starts getting absolutely rocked in this fight as Kanya and Conductor We Have a Problem are also fighting. Everybody fight everybody, I guess. Why is any of this happening? Well, who knows? It's now becoming an age-old question of blunt versus sharp damage, which is better. The real key is, who has the better reach? Seeing police in the distance, it breaks up their little lovers' quarrel as they are informed it is the police. But basically, it's the police turned warlords. Why would this be happening as aliens are literally harvesting humanity with them included? Remains to be seen. You'd think there'd be more important things to worry about. And I know somebody's going to say, well, people take advantage of chaotic situations. Yeah, they do. But it doesn't seem like anybody's faring well, right? The police, the military, civilians, whatever, everybody is equally food, basically. Not food, but brains. Maybe worry about those situations. But yeah, so out of this, the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of scenario is now upheld and agreeing to work together. Why didn't they just do this from the start? They make camp for the night as the Punisher then informs them he only saw 1 alien on that ship and the things they are fighting are still human upstairs. The suits are messing with their heads or brains as the toddler's eyes then turn red. Also, why are the cops not getting wrecked like everyone else? I am confused. Again, this needed to be like a minimum of 2 movies to explain this. Otherwise, this feels so rushed. It sucks. Like, why are we not in Hawaii right now? That's where we were supposed to go. So Conductor We Have a Problem informs the Punisher that the offspring is still growing, and she tells her that his wife's name is Rose, and she was a classic. So you're available, is what she's hearing. So as everyone then sleeps, they are woken by a random dude taking them at rifle point, who went in there completely alone. The egg then randomly rolls out of the bag as Big Bro then hits him with a shot. Also, the youngling is like, I don't know, what would you call that, like 5 at this point? So they keep walking with gunshot victim now for reasons unknown. Why was he out there alone? Also, if you look at the promo footage on YouTube, like the thumbnail for this, he's in the background, by the way. Okay, so they keep walking with gunshot victim as now they head to what is claimed to be a Laotian temple, which I want to point out, this temple is in Indonesia. It is, I believe, the Prambanan Temple. I might have mispronounced that. It is not a Laotian temple. And then they're claiming that they are in Vietnam. So, yeah, anyways, 1,000 years ago, they built this temple to honor the gods, and now they use it to fight the gods. Okay, so I blame you guys for making me watch this. Who am I kidding? I can't stay mad at you. Entering the tunnels, the Punisher then hopes that they have room service, and these are my level of jokes, stop stealing them. Which, oh great, random college hippie is down there also. His name is Harper. Asking how it is up there, it's pretty bad, as in they throw gunshot victim in a cell without any medical help. Yeah, that should be able to not be a problem later with an open wound and him having to deal with that. Very good. So taking the temperature of the girl, she's got a high temperature. She's only 2 days old, but 3 years old also. He mentions how this place pays better than the CDC, which yeah, they don't pay their scientists enough, some would claim, but at least we see something that actually makes sense. With her temperature higher than what could be considered, I guess, normal, this would imply that the level of mitosis in her body is actually elevated, which this brings us back around to the adaptations. Have you ever wondered why species that have lower lifespans appear to adapt better to environments? Typically, it's because metabolisms are not only higher, but traits can be passed down faster, and things like epigenetics can also be transferred. This can have a compounding effect over time, leading to considerable changes in the body plan for that species because generations tend to pass quicker. In terms of this girl, given her mitosis, as well as that being beyond that of normal human, gene expression to deal with her environment that could typically take years to achieve is accomplished within a few days. It is the epitome of epigenetics and adaptation, and all of this comes at a price though. Higher temperatures, what we could assume is kind of going to basically imply there's more of a nutrition constraint, but also what we're about to find out with her blood. Fundamentally, however, the body is displaying adaptations because unlike another person, which would kind of slowly display these over time, in her body, it is able to be displayed quickly as she is still actively exposed to this blue light infection. It is just unknown to everyone around her, but we will see soon enough that they figure it out pretty quick and immediately try to kill her. So he talks about how 40 years ago, like the brother does, Americans tried to bomb the place. It was just said they were in Laos, with a temple currently residing in Indonesia. Now we're in Vietnam. Did anybody give the producers of this movie a map Okay, so let's go to something a little less stupid. Harper is looking at the girl's blood, right? And then he sees that it's made out of blood. Very astute scientist we have here. Kanye then comes over saying she has a present. She says it's something specifically for him, as he's like, I'm too busy being a Chad scientist. And he's like, something has changed within her DNA, which stop. How exactly would you know that? How do you see her DNA? How do you know that there are different nucleotides in it? Getting the egg handed to him, conductor, we have a problem, is bonding with the girl as Kanye then is trying to just run in and take her out. Again, how did you see her DNA? With what equipment? You categorize the human genome in such a short amount of time. This guy literally is wasting his time being in another country. You need to be like the top scientist. What is going on? Okay, so let me lay this out real quick. Harper here is suggesting he's looking at her DNA and that he can see enough of it to know that it has changed. First, that would require an electron microscope. If you are able to see chromosomes, for instance, I mean, you can see full-on chromosomes with a light microscope, but the reality is you're not going to be able to detect changes. You could also use something like polymerase chain reaction or PCR testing to amplify DNA, but even then, how do you know what has changed if you don't know what you're looking for? Which I imagine, given the centrifuge that he has, that is exactly what he is doing, and he's trying to categorize the changes, but you don't know what you're looking for. How do you know it changed? So let's be serious here. They are not going to tell us how the DNA changed. They will go on to say that it is now compatible with human DNA, like with alien DNA and all this stuff, but what does that mean exactly? Well, technically it means nothing, but here's what I think. Her DNA, let's just say it's changed for the sake of argument. How? Well, it's clear with what we were about to learn, something had to be tacked on, and then the cell is attempting to compensate for that. So the Punisher then breaks up the fight as he says she's the key to freeing the others. He doesn't know that. Harper now reports what's happening. Her cell walls are denser, which cell walls those don't exist in humans. Those exist in plants. We have cell membranes, but I can see those being denser. However, her system is now becoming depleted because the growth is too fast. She needs a transfusion of blood. How does he know that? He wouldn't. You wouldn't know this. So the blood keeps her alive. Punisher offers up his blood as he was weaponized by the Scorn Hole. So they take his blood to see if it works or not, and giving her the transfusion, it's going extremely slow. So let me put it this way. There are several genes responsible for the actual growth of a cell membrane. As we were about to see, the cell is responding to what is an immediate threat in its environment that has caused the changes that can be actually quantified. The woman from the beginning, who I cannot believe I forgot was even in this movie, I thought this was another movie entirely, now wakes up. She's like 10 days old, I guess, because it must be this girl. She has the Punisher's wedding ring, as back in the past earlier that week, the Punisher comes in to check on the girl as now she can talk. This movie would have been so cool had they not rushed the hell out of these plot points. This entire concept concerning the DNA and like the body adapting, these are all really cool points that would have been excellent had they actually been well thought out. That's, you know, the worst part about this movie is not how quick it is, it's the wasted potential. So pulling a sample of blue light, it's not a virus, it's not a bacteria, it's completely alien, but it's biologically compatible with our DNA. And what exactly does that mean? Well, Harper suggests humanity was planted here like a crop. Okay, go back. How is it biologically compatible with our DNA? They're not going to tell us. Okay, it's biologically compatible with our DNA because it's able to activate certain genes to increase mitosis. They're not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you that. Anyways, the aliens weren't counting on one thing with humans though, which was evolution. The girl's serum blocks the blue light. Putting her blood in the light delivery system, apparently everyone will be freed, which means it will corrupt this blue light infection and turn it into a red light infection. So to understand the girl's immunity, we need to understand what the blue light actually is. This appears to be a form of infection that has viral tendencies, but would not be considered an actual living infection. I mean, look at viruses in general, depending on what biologist you ask, they're living or they're non-living. This thing is like a confirmed non-living biological infection. Very strange. But instead, it could be very similar to sort of like a nanite infection when directly exposed, but given that it is light, it may be causing certain protein structures to form within the body once exposed. And this is how I imagine this looks. When the eyes receive the light, this energy causes their brains to enter a state of hypnosis. Upon doing so, internal to the neurons at first, eventually spreading to the rest of the body, and then, or at least to the blood, and then to the rest of the body. Basically, the body is overhauled in terms of mitotic growth. However, to not become a giant clump of cancer, the same light must stabilize the genome so that the cells divide and they are not affected horrifically through the natural process of mutations building up during mitosis. This in turn primes the brain to be extracted so that when it is connected to the body of the biomechanical robots, it is able to rapidly form connections it needs through dendritic branching. Given all the cells are the same, just undergoing differentiation, it is assumed once the human looks at the light, they will be harvested. At least that's what the aliens are assuming. However, those who are not, like Brody and Skylines and Mr. Hero in this movie as well, as also Elaine, an issue does arise. It's a sort of consequence of needing it to be done this way and only this way. Like, let's say, burning wood requires you to cut down the tree. The outcome of burning wood is you're warm, which is great. But you also have to cut down the tree, and if you cut down too many trees, that's not so great. So there's a cost-benefit analysis to be done for this process entirely, but it cannot be any different than what it already is. They need human brains to be primed, but should a human escape, or in this case, a youngling be formed outside of the control of the gestational sacs on the ship, they could become immune through epigenetics, altering their physiology of their cell. The blue light clearly forms something in the blood that would invade other cells and make it compatible, so to speak, by affecting the genome. As a result of this, as the infection circulates, the body is more primed at dealing with it as their own cells are responding. This increase in size of the cell membrane preventing the blue light infection from actively invading the cells and altering the genome, or in general, it may just even hold back the virus, the nanite, I guess it would be, from even exiting out of the cell so that it can't do any more harm. Essentially, it's all very strange. It seems like the body is throwing anything at the wall to see what sticks. However, for the mitosis to be maintained, it seems that, at least to me, the body must have this blue light infection present, which indicates that the Punisher is infected, but given the size of his cell membranes, his DNA is actively being changed currently, which later would induce his own epigenetics to respond, making him immune and elevating him to a new form of human. However, this movie barely plays by its own rules. But how might the light be building an infection in the body? Well, it goes back to the same idea that Einstein had. That's right, we're going out that way. E equals mc squared, with energy equaling mass times the speed of light squared. Basically, if you are able to reverse this equation, you should be able to create mass from energy. And this is the fundamental principle, I believe, of this movie. As energy hits your eyes, mass is introduced into your body in the way of an infection. So that's why if you don't look at it, it's not a problem. This infection is programmed to increase mitosis of the neurons, or at minimum, dendritic branching, to prep it for being placed within a machine body to help with processing and help it become more effective. If you escape, this infection is still there, altering your body, making you stronger, or in specific instances of a youngling being exposed to the mother's blood, making their own bodies immune to the infection through adaptations of the body. And this would be like how cells are known to pack their cell membranes more densely to decrease fluidity in the presence of viruses, or preventing proteins from crossing over those membranes as readily in a way to decrease the possibility of them being infected by the virus. Essentially, what I believe is the body must be adapting in some sort of way where it is either attaching to these proteins that is induced by the blue light virus or infection, and then preventing it from progressing. Although, to be honest with you, Diane, it doesn't seem like the infection is really that bad. The only part of the infection that really seems bad is if you get picked up by the aliens. So this same display is shown when in the presence of the blue light. Back on the alien ship, it appears as though part of it was salvageable, creating a hovercraft of sorts, which is great for them. And then showing the stash as they need to get back on the ship, they load up as we get, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, Marvel levels of dialogue. It was pretty lame. I could tell the original writers wanted this movie to be so much more, and the idea is there, but holy hell, is the execution terrible. Putting the vaccine in a syringe, they intend to leave at nightfall. As conductor, we have a problem, and Kanya set up claymores. In the distance, they can now hear alien shrieks, which would be a very good time to leave. As conductor, we have a problem is told to stay there on the open path, as Kanya then gets a call. As she's standing directly in front of the camera that her brother is watching her from, conductor, we have a problem is almost squished by a giant monster, as Kanya then opens up on it, but it's about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Kanya then runs into a minefield as the creature continues chasing her and then is blown up. But luckily not Kanya, except unluckily, nor was the alien either, because it's giant, and then stepping on a mine, she is screwed. The alien approaches as she tells her brother to forgive her as she blows herself up. Everyone then acts to the best of their ability, and I mean acts. They're acting. It was terrible. Also, there is no way on God's green earth that conductor without a problem saw any of this, but they do a zoom in like she saw the whole thing happen. That makes no sense. She was so far away from that entire situation. This is what I'm talking about. Somehow everyone knows everything that's happening. So Alien Prime is back in action as he has now identified where they are. Somehow. Back in the tunnels, the Punisher then greets Conductor, we have a problem. As we have larger problems now, the Punisher requests the needle as everyone then starts rigging up traps. So, much like the youngling growing up fast, somehow his relationship with Conductor, we have a problem has advanced like 10 years inside of 2 days. It's crazy. I'm gonna keep it real with you. This is not how human emotions work, but then again, what do I know? I'm simply a former scientist screaming on a YouTube video about stupidity in this movie. So, the temple is now under attack as the aliens try to get in. The Punisher exits out of the top of the hidey hole as the aliens continue scanning the area. Entering the temple, they detonate the traps. Hopefully, there's no other hidey holes for them to break into, and burning one area, which remember, they're underground, so oxygen is limited. One alien then jumps down and starts going absolutely ham as one guy gets his head Omni-Man as he becomes about bro here, fighting this alien. Stabbing it a few more times with syringes, he then gets roundhoused as he is able to light on fire, burning through their precious oxygen. Carbon monoxide is about to become a real problem down here, and this enrages old Alien Prime as he goes to get in his huge mech. The Punisher, still on his mission to get close to the cannon, moves through the temple before climbing up onto the ship, which could have never been foreseen by the aliens. Entering it, Broham then goes and arms gunshot victim as the Punisher then opens up the elevator door. Back in the civilian area, also, when he arms gunshot victim, he's like, here, take this. Why are you speaking in English? So I see tons of men and women also that could have been armed in the back room as Harper is just straight up utilizing that black tar because he's a lover, not a fighter. Doesn't matter, bro. This is an all hands on deck scenario. Getting Harp up, he's armed as well, but bro is high as all get out. Everyone then retreats to the surface, which seems like a bad idea, right? And again, beats taking a nap with the carbon monoxide as everyone gets blue lighted as the toddler then looks, but her eyes are red. The Punisher almost gets his head taken off by Mr. Alien as one guy is able to blow up the blue light with an RPG. Alien Prime then arrives in his giant suit as he starts knocking rocks onto everyone while the Punisher is getting absolutely wrecked. Also, $10 says he's getting wrecked by the alien that's his son. And then spotting the ring, everyone here watching owes me $10 now. I take checks, cash, and most forms of credit. I was right. That is his son out of all of them that it could have been. Knocking Mr. Hero into the blue light, everyone then starts retreating from the alien. Harper, being high as all get out, then saves Conductor, we have a problem, but then he gets his throat slit in the process. The Punisher then turns his blue ball into red balls. Sounds bad either way, as then he chucks it into the light as everyone then turns red, and everyone is now woken back up in their human form. Alien Prime then spots the ship is turning red as he has a diva moment about it as he pulls off the cannon to prevent it from firing. Somehow the Punisher got thrown from the ship and didn't die. Not really sure your spine could take that kind of hit, but hey, whatever. So everyone's just getting wrecked. Life sucks, and the Punisher scornholes his arm once again as then he starts taking out aliens. Conductor, we have a problem, is yelling at an alien as gunshot victim then goes ham on another one, and now everyone starts fighting them, which, if this is how these things are, I feel like probably just recruiting Laotians would have been a better ploy than maybe Derek from accounting back in the US. Alien Prime now arrives to ruin the good times, and seeing old Red Eyes is not blue, it goes to fire its laser, but another red-eyed suit then shows up. Oh, I guess we were just kind of cool like that. Oh, it's Mr. Hero. He's back. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. Everyone likes giant mech fights, right? It just is. Getting completely suplexed, which was baller. Mr. Hero then gets his arm torn off, and the Punisher then grabs an RPG as Trent is getting just absolutely wrecked, which looks hilarious. Like, come on, Trent. Don't you remember breaking that dude's jaw in one punch that just connected? Whoa, one alien is too much for you? Guess so. So a little girl without a name then runs off as gunshot victim is finally overwhelmed and his arm gets ripped off as then he loses his next arm and his other, good lord. Anyway, is there a gun function on these Scorn arms? Like, cause he just did something to somebody's head. So little girl with no name now heads over to the cannon as she's able to restart it, which immediately gets Alien Prime's attention. Mr. Hero is able to grab the cannon as he fires it at Alien Prime, which creates a red light now, which wakes everyone back up. All right, Derek from accounting is back, baby. Alien Prime then dies crawling out of his ship as Mr. Hero then walks out of his mech. Punisher knuckles his alien son as Conductor, we have a problem, has fully bonded with the little girl with no name. Somehow. Conductor, we have a problem then feels up on Mr. Hero's arm, so now it's 10 years later, as apparently a girl with no name is a captain. A captain of what? I don't know. So they're out in space, and now they're just heading to the aliens hiding behind the moon to expose them to the wonders of the red light. An anemic rock begins playing as they fire the red light, blowing everything up. Why does the light have explosive capabilities? Don't know. Never explain. And it's not just a montage of how people screwed up walking in their crappy suits, as well as choreographed events. They're really showing it. Like, bro, did they earn this? I think you need to flesh out the characters a little bit more to make this feel right, you know? Okay, well, thus concludes Beyond Skyline. Unfortunately for you and everyone else involved, we allegedly have one more left. Someone mentioned a quadrilogy though, so, oh god. So finally, let's discuss the red versus blue. As we can clearly see, like with Brody from the beginning, if exposed, the body adapts. Not just the cells, but also cellular interaction. It's hard to know if this is actually an immunological response, but it's clear that given the Punisher's body, they're producing some sort of countermeasure to the blue light infection. When he gives this girl his blood, her body is able to utilize potentially enzymes in his blood. I would have to assume it looks like this. Enzymes in the blood alter the attacking blue light infection. In doing so, this causes the cell of the body to adapt because it's present but not detrimental. For an adult, it's sustainable, but for a growing youngling, this can lead to their body becoming depleted if these enzymes are not present to help stabilize the genome, which once they're depleted, I guess, that's when it becomes a problem. By donating blood to the girl, her enzymes are replenished, which allows for her body to continue to grow. This in turn would end up allowing for her to continue surviving. With the blue light infection altered, given it's also energy as well as mass, this in turn physically changes it, as now it produces a red light rather than a blue due to the human body physically altering it. With this happening, it is likely that it is more compatible with the human physiology overpowering the blue light, which is based on alien DNA that is compatible with human DNA. So when humans who are dealing with the blue light infection are exposed to it, this frees them as they are converted over to the red light infection, but this causes them really just to be able to gain control of themselves. But at the end of the day, we are dealing with alien technology in a human body that may or may not have been able to deal with it itself. It's clear, however, the immunity must come from the human body and not from the human mind, meaning structures within the human body are responsible for overcoming the infection, and the brain could really never do it by itself unless it was already circulating, like with Brody within the first movie. All of this is to say, what is going on? But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. What do you think about all this? Look, this movie is dumb. It's real dumb. I already said I would cover the trilogy, so we got one more after this. But if you did stick through this, I want to thank you, and you're a cool guy, and you could be my friend. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, Roanoke Tales, Roanoke Games link in the description. Speaking of patrons, I'd like to thank mine real quick. At the Astronaut tier, we have Bananas Are Epic. Thank you, my man. At the Astrophysicist tier, we have Death's Dancer. Thank you as well, bro. And the Scientist tier, we have Dakota23, Frank, Shaft Crank, Invictus Echo, Metric System, Ocean Gate was cover up for an Anglerfish Attack, Official Texan, and Stutz. And to the rest of my patrons, I do appreciate y'all's support as well. It was a long way towards helping out, and you are absolute ballers. All right, that's gonna do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I will see y'all in the next one.